Hello, this is the NICU Lived Network, and we are your hosts. I'm Melinda.
I'm Nat. And I'm Emma. We are all NICU mothers using our lived experience to partner with health professionals to impact research, advocacy, and clinical practice.
Each week we will bring you something new. It could be a topic highlight, the latest in research, a visit to a NICU, or ways in which you can use your lived experience within the NICU to impact change. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the NICU Lived Network. You're with Mel and we've got Emma here today. Unfortunately, unfortunately, Nat cannot make it. Her internet up in the Northern Territory is not working today, so she's an apology, but very disappointed because we have a really beautiful guest with us today, Maria Chifa. Hi, Maria. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure. So Maria is a research assistant within the cognitive and development psychology at Middlesex University, but she's also a veteran NICU mum of 28-weeker twins. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Maria?
Absolutely. I am based in London, and 6 years ago I became mother of prematurely born twins. They were born at 28 weeks and had a very hard time because the lungs were underdeveloped, obviously, as is very common in premature births. But also they had a bit of bad luck because at 2 weeks of after birth, one of them got an infection, which kind of destroyed her lungs, and the recovery was very, very long. So they spent 233 days in the NICU.
Oh, wow.
Very, very hard time for us as a family. But at the same time, it was an experience which taught us so many lessons and which motivated me to do research in this area. And here we are. At the moment, I am trying to support NICU parents, other NICU parents and families as a whole by doing coaching. So this is what I've been up to.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, you've got interesting sounds in the NICU. I mean, I guess because you said you wanted to sort of work and support the NICU units, where was it particularly with sounds? Like, you know, and I guess I'm really interested to understand a bit more about your research project and, you know, where you started and, you know, where you're at now, really.
I was during my second year of university when our girls came, they were born, and it was really hard for me to.
So you were studying at the time when you were pregnant.
Wow.
It was extremely hard, but at the same time.
And you didn't mention that you also had a little one at home.
Yes, who was 3 years at the time, so very, very busy and difficult. To prioritize, to organize everything. So, but luckily I had my supervisor, Dr. Fabia Franco, who kind of turned my, my weaknesses into strengths, in the sense that she was like, look, I know you're having a hard time, but we can make something out of this. And then she came with this idea to develop a questionnaire and to ask other NICU parents about their perception of the soundscape from the NICU, knowing that I had the lived experience of being in the NICU, and I saw how it is there, what kind of machines there are, how the sounds, you know, how everything happens. She came with her great expertise, and then that's how we combined our skills, and we created this questionnaire, Sound in NICU, which was a real success, I would say. And we already had lots of talks at different hospitals trying to raise the awareness of this negative impact that NICU soundscape has on parents.
No, I think I can still remember the beeping of in the back ends. Yeah, and just had a friend recently where they had a 28-weeker as well, and he said his wife was literally dreaming about the beeping in the background. So yeah, and so you've gone through the research projects. Tell us a little bit more, I guess, of your findings from that, and you know,
absolutely,
where you go from here.
I'll tell you a bit how we made up everything and the results, and in a short, concise manner. So we created this questionnaire, Sound in NICU, which looked at a parental perspective of the sounds from NICU, post-discharge at home as well. So there were lots of questions asking how the NICU soundscape affected them, if it affected it in any way, how they communicated with their babies, if it impeded them care for their babies, if they used any singing, recordings, talkings. So it was a very complex, looking at kind of as many areas as we could think of the sound in NICU. And then we correlated this questionnaire. We used another questionnaire, PTSD, to see if the NICU soundscape are in any manner connected with the PTSD symptomatology. And we then created a survey in Qualtrics and found participants online. 386 participants were introduced in our analysis. And from there, we also had, I have to mention that we had an open question as well, not only the questionnaire. The open question asked if they would be happy to share any memories related to the sounds in NICU that they had, which was surprisingly to us, very, very good data. And we were able to extend our analysis and dig even more into what was the impact that the soundscape from NICU had. Going back to the results that we found, overall, we found that participants who perceived the NICU soundscape as a negative one, they also displayed higher PTSD symptomatology. So it was suggesting that PTSD is triggered by this NICU soundscape as well as by other things that we know, like trauma, this early birth, lack of adaptation to parenthood, and so on. And we saw that lots of parents used recordings in the NICU to keep babies company, to help with their development, to give them a sense that they are not alone. They also used talking, reading, which is so important for for bonding in the NICU, for promoting language development in the early days, and so on. Regarding the qualitative data, which was from that open question, just like Emma mentioned, many participants said that they were triggered after they left NICU. They were triggered by microwave sounds, lots of other beeping sounds that they heard around, sent them back to NICU. And some of them said that even after 7 years of being discharged from NICU, they could still hear these sounds, and the impact was just as powerful as if they were in the NICU. So very interesting results we found. And with my supervisor, we tried to, like I said, to go to different hospitals to raise awareness and find coping mechanisms in the hope that this will improve the experiences of NICU parents while they are in the units, and help them cope in a better manner, hopefully.
Well, congratulations, because your work's been published, and the article that we're talking about is titled "The Soundscape of Neonatal Intensive Care, a Mixed Methods Study of the Parent's Experience." And I think one of the things that I found really interesting when I was going through it is that up until now, and Maria, my kids are older. I've got 17, 19, and 21, so it's been quite a little while that I've been out of the NICU. But there's always talk about sound for the baby in terms of, what that means to them, trying to have quiet time and things like that. So, but the interesting thing was that it is about parents' response to the sound. And I know for years while we were trying to develop parent like peer-to-peer support parent programs, that one of the things that was triggering when parents would go back and talk to current parents after they had been discharged was the sights, the smells, and the sounds. So it's just so interesting from a parent's perspective that you've actually taken the time to see how does this trigger parents. And one of the things that I found really fascinating was you don't think about good sounds and bad sounds. So, the bad sounds would be, the machines beeping, or like you said, the sound of the microwave, or, anytime something went wrong, there would be lights, or there'd be, the beeping and the sounds. But then on the other side, there's the good ones where it's the singing, the talking, the reading to babies. I didn't think about how challenging it is from both sides of what that would mean for parents. The whole the paper was really interesting. Even crying, like how crying triggers, but it wasn't even your own baby crying, hearing other babies crying, a trigger for parents. And like you said, you had the open questions, and some of the responses I found were really interesting. One, I've got them in front of me. I found it difficult to connect with my baby as it was too quiet, and I didn't want to disturb the rest of the unit. So we think quiet time is a good time, but then that can cause anxiety as well. Did you find that? Like, it must have been really hard to go through so many different scenarios and emotions for parents.
Absolutely. Yes, just like you mentioned, the research, the literature was very scarce on the impact that NICU Soundscape has on parents. So that is why we created this questionnaire, in fact, because we wanted to give other NICU parents a voice, that they are heard and they have their say. It's really, really hard to kind of balance all these sounds, because even, let's say, the monitor, for example, so many parents said that it causes so much stress and anxiety and all those bad emotions, but at the same time it brings reassurance. So it's something that they wouldn't be able to say, I don't want this because I don't want all these bad effects. I want it because it in some way it brings reassurance. It tells me that everything is fine and I can carry on with the cares or with whatever I'm doing there. So it's I think it's what makes it so complicated and difficult to deal with in the NICU, because they need to be there, but at the same time they trigger a lot of anxiety and fear and anger sometimes, from my personal experience.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. For example, I was always terrified whenever I heard general alarm in the NICU. That means that some baby needed resuscitation or some more sophisticated treatment from the doctors because something bad happened to him. I remember that it didn't matter where I was, in the expressing room, in the parents' room. I would just run like crazy and hoping in my mind, praying, oh, I hope this is not my baby. And now looking back, I feel a bit bad because I should have said, I hope that baby is fine, because all the other parents that experienced this, it wasn't pleasant even for them. So some survival guilt here.
We all have guilt, don't we? Yeah, I don't think that you can escape it when you go through such an awful experience, that you always have some guilt, especially when you have to look at your baby's fight so hard. Absolutely.
No, it's perfectly understandable. I'm just back there now, and sorry, my 9-year-old's just wandered in to get something.
Does he want to say hello? We love
he's run off now, so yeah.
Hi, Buffy.
Always comes in at the wrong time. And so I'm really interested to know, so from the research that you've done, I mean, what are kind of the strategies that hospitals are implementing to help parents with, to deal with the sounds? And, when you're in that environment, like you say, you are listening out all the time, and it can panic you, stress you, calm you, a million different emotions. So I'm really interested to know the result of the survey and some of the things that have been done.
According to the parents, what worked well for them was making them aware and telling them, preparing them somehow, look, this is the monitor, this is what it says. If it beeps, don't get panicked or something. These numbers are signifying this, and so on. So kind of getting them ready so they make sense of what is going on around them. Other parents said that they used singing and music from pre-birth, so their baby was familiar with some songs and some kind of stories, melodies, and then they used it during the NICU and post-discharge. So suggesting that it helps with the adaptation,
Oh, so like so the music that you
continuity,
start
yes.
to listen to, during pregnancy in NICU and then home, the transition. Yeah.
Yes. Other parents mentioned that they had quiet times when the lights were dimmed. Everyone was a bit more mindful, with their talking and just trying to give a very nice atmosphere for everyone to relax and enjoy, and maybe have some kangaroo care. Kangaroo care, because I mentioned, was another mitigating procedure. And I want to expand a little bit here, saying that among the first times when I had kangaroo care with one of my daughters, the wires from her chest got somehow into her skin due to some odd positioning. As she was in my chest, the wires just got inserted in her skin, which were at least comfortable, if not painful. But she was so absorbed by our cuddle and just loved so much being held at my chest that she didn't complain at all, which she used to do when she was uncomfortable previously. And that to me was the first lesson that I learned about the power of the kangaroo care, because it can really mitigate any other side effects in the NICU.
Yeah, Nat and I are very big advocates for all of FICare and having parents
Absolutely.
more involved. I know that's big, in the UK as well, which is amazing. Did you find that there was, I've got two questions. Was there a correlation between how the sounds affected them in terms of if their babies had a low birth weight or, earlier gestational age, were in hospital longer, compared to ones that may have had a shorter stay or a less intensive stay?
Yes, we found a correlation that the earlier the baby was born, the more negatively parents have been impacted by the sounds, which is kind of explained and understandable, because the earlier the baby is born, the more support he needs with their breathing, the more machines are involved in their care, and all this chaos triggers more the parents.
Yeah. And then the other one, and it's kind of two sides of, I guess the experience is that, yes, for me, the sounds were really triggering and the same. If I was away expressing and I heard a cry or I heard a machine beep, I couldn't get there fast enough to see if it was my son. But then at the same time, I know that when we were getting closer to discharge and they were taking the machines off and there was no more, beeps, or I couldn't look up and see his sats or see his heart rate or anything like that, that set off a different anxiety for me. Like, then it was too quiet. And then I remember a nurse saying, "Oh, now it's time to start looking at your baby," because I got so, not addicted, but that was like my security. You're not in M. Did you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When we left, because when we were in high dependency, because we did the NICU high dependency special care, and when we got to special care, it was almost like, is he okay? Because you've been watching and listening, and you, like you say, you then reading the baby to make sure they're breathing okay or everything's fine. It's a very weird shift from that. And then when you come home and it's like, oh, there really is nothing here now. So those sounds, I think, still haunt me a little bit, but equally was a reassurance most of the time, except for when things weren't going quite as well as they should have been. Then it was,
Did you find that in your research?
Yes. And even from my personal experience, because we've been 8 months in the NICU, obviously we kind of had time to adapt and to get confident and so on. But it was really, really hard to not look at the monitor all the time. And the doctors, just like in your case, Emma, they were telling us, look, you have to get rid of the monitor. You have to be confident, because when you go home, there is no monitor, there is no nurse, there is no one to give you reassurance. So you have to be sure that you know your baby, that you can tell immediately if she gets desaturated or she needs help or anything. And going back to our research, I want to mention that participants found the home transition a bit tricky, let's say tricky, because I imagine, and from what they mentioned, just because of this, on one side, because they didn't have any support from nurses, from doctors, from the monitors. On the other side, maybe because of the unresolved issues that carried on to home, like maybe postnatal depression, trauma, the fear of losing their baby that maybe got even bigger after they went home. But at the same time, there were they mentioned some positive experiences at home, such as that they didn't have to travel long distances to hospital. They could spend more time with their families around. They could spend time without being impacted by the dynamics from the NICU, like the sounds, the sights, and the smells. So it was, again, mixed experience being at home.
It's interesting now. So my son was in there for about 3 months. He can sleep through anything now, I think, because he had his first entry into NICU and it's loud, and he was an amazing sleeper. And even now, you could literally run a hoover around in the room and he would sleep through it. So I don't know if that's any input from that, the 3-4 months in hospital and probably the other visits that we had since then. But it's amazing, that noise piece. And he loves everything to be loud. He doesn't like quiet. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I noticed that in the research too, that some parents would continue some kind of noise, whether it's playing music or something, to not have a completely quiet home once they transition to home outside of the NICU.
Absolutely, yes, because it's so hard to adapt to the new environment, and it takes time. And some parents chose to put some white noise, as they call it, or just some quiet, music at the back, on the background, just for something to so the babies could hear. In our case, we used a lot of classical music during the NICU. We had those little speakers, and we would bring a card in it, so we would change those melodies regularly, and we used it throughout, especially after 2 months. After the first 2 months, we used it for the rest of our NICU journey. And when they came home as well, one of them, Victoria, who came home first, she got it's very easy for her to adapt to any situation. So we didn't find any issues. She was sleeping very comfortable. She loved the home environment. Whereas Aurora, just like other parents mentioned in our research, had a tremendous time to adapt to the home environment. She was just waking up all the time, as if the sounds were, as if she was missing the sounds that much. She got used to them. So then we had to some music and comfort her and tell her, although I don't know how much she understood, but always remind her that we are home now and it's different and we'll get used to it and it's so much better at home. And we couldn't wait for them to come home, and it got better. It eventually fell into place.
So where are you hoping that this research goes? That they would do a randomized controlled trial, or that it would, extend to more families?
Yeah, that would be a brilliant idea, a randomized control trial. In the initial stages with my supervisor, we thought that it would be a brilliant idea just to raise awareness that these NICU sounds have a huge negative impact on these parents. To give, maybe not give ideas, because each unit is different and they know what they have and how can they improve things, but give this thought-provoking state, so they can think of their unit, and they can imagine what other things can they do better sound wise for babies, which I know there is a lot of work already done throughout the world, but also for the parents. So always having the loop this idea. Moreover, for the staff to become aware that the impact that NICU sounds have is negative, so they can maybe be a bit more mindful. For example, when the monitor goes off, maybe just reassure them a bit, because for a nurse it's something normal to just tick those monitors. She knows what they mean. It's different. She's used to them. But for a parent, especially in the first days, who sees these numbers going down, it can be extremely traumatic. So for staff as well to be a bit more mindful and patient with the parents until they get into NICU world.
Exactly.
So then it would be lovely if we could do some more research and have control groups and see, for example, if we come with some intervention and see if that is helpful. It would be a brilliant idea.
There's definitely the two sides of it. So one side is to educate the parents on the sounds that they're going to experience within the NICU and what that means, to try and alleviate any of the anxiety and fear and everything that comes with that. And then on the other side, to help raise awareness on the good things that they can do and how sound can make a positive experience, to help with their bonding, to help, soothe their baby and all of those things, whether it is through the singing and the music and reading books or just talking to baby, and like making them aware of that at the same time that, sounds are important as well. So that's, it's really interesting. Congratulations. It's a really big thing to do, such a big research project. And I know you said there was about 300 participants, but I think all up you had about over 1,000 people originally. They weren't able to take part in it, but they had put their hand up to help you. So I think that's absolutely amazing.
Only 7 participants were fathers, which is I think in the literature overall, fathers are a bit underrepresented, and for some reasons, I can't understand why, but they don't get involved as much in this kind of research projects. But I believe they are equally affected.
I think it's more. Now I'm a mum. I think I realise it tends to be the mum that does all the organising and gets involved with everything, school, research, you name it. So I think that's probably why they kind of you can do that. That's okay. So it would be fabulous to get more men's perspective. It's been really interesting with the person that I know to have the dad side of it as well, rather than, because I don't know his wife or anything. So it's been really interesting to hear that, his perspective of it all, and how he's felt in there. So
when he's ready, we should have him on an episode.
No, absolutely. I haven't broached it yet. He's just at home enjoying time with his son at the moment, but we'll get him on at some point. But no, it's amazing what you've done, and the fact that you're in uni, balancing a 3-year-old, and then 2 children at home, 1 in the NICU, and researching and studying. It's amazing, and it's the benefits are only gonna, what's the word I'm looking for? So it's late now, so I've got to find my words. I've forgotten all my words now, but no, it's amazing. I think the impact that you can have and understanding is huge for parents. It's already brought me back. Even now I'm thinking, the smells you talked about, the hand sanitizer. There's a certain brand, and every time I smell it, I'm literally straight back there. So it's your senses. You forget about that, don't you? You're just too focused on, getting through your baby and making sure everything's okay, that you forget all the sensory side that comes along with it. And it can trigger some quite big emotions as well.
Absolutely, yeah. This could be researched as well. So brilliant idea, Emma, for future research.
That leads me to my next question, actually. So obviously, as a researcher and as a NICU mum, I mean, what areas do you think, there could be better research in, or there are areas that of exploring from your perspective really interesting?
Absolutely. I'll mention just a few so no one gets my ideas. I'm just kidding. But like we mentioned, that's perspective on the impact that NICU sounds have on them. Smells. Absolutely, it would be something amazing to research. kangaroo care in the sense that some hospitals, I've heard of many hospitals that cannot have kangaroo care anytime because some staff are not trained. For example, if a baby is very sick with lots of machines, it takes someone who really knows what they do to put that baby on mom's chest. So we could look into this a little bit.
Yeah.
We could also look into the possibility for the parents to get their baby out of the cot, which some hospitals have the protocol that they are not allowed to do. But when the baby is stable enough and with not many, machines around, I think it would be more beneficial than to go through nurses' hands and then on mom's chest. So I think the mom would be able to just slowly get the baby very carefully, trained, obviously, showed how to do, and then just put the baby straight on her chest. It would less handling. I think it would make the baby not that tired. So this is something we could look into it. We could also look into, because our participants mentioned the use of music, singing, recordings. We could also look into this and see clearly what benefits might have on families. Although the research shows that they have great music therapy has great positive impact on the baby and the caregivers, in the sense that the caregivers find it easier to bond, to breastfeed with the baby. It reduces the heart rate, it increases the oxygenation. So there have been real benefits, especially with the live music, which is very easy to adapt to baby state. For example, if the baby is upset or becomes startled or something, you can just stop and not overstimulate, compared to the recordings that sometimes if you just put it on, you don't observe the baby, it can cause some distress. So live music is always more recommended in contrast to the recordings. And
So many avenues to look down.
Lots of them. Only there would be opportunities to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's so amazing. And until I read the paper, and we're going to put the link in all of our descriptions when we post this episode of your paper, but just learning more and just thinking about sounds and the impact that they have, particularly not only on baby, but on a family and a parent's experience. I think that's been absolutely amazing. Now, before we go, you write some poetry about your experience within the NICU, and I think that you were going to leave us with a poem.
Yes. I'm a person who always finds easier to write than to talk, so poetry book was something that I really loved to do. And today I'll read you one of the poems that I wrote. It's called What's a Beep, and it tells exactly what I experienced while being in the NICU and hearing all those beeps. So I'll start. What's a beep? With every single beep I hear, your cry, your struggle, and your fear, the pain that grips your little body, the solitude, like there is nobody. With every beep you try to say, there's something wrong and I should stay, and try to hold my hand on you, such a difficult thing to do. With every beep you try to show your never-ending fight, so I don't let go, to my hopes, to my humble prayers. You will be fine, thanks to your saviors. With every beep, my heart shatters into pieces. My whole body just freezes. My mind gets cloudy, full of worry. Who could understand such a story? With every beep, my ears are burning, hurting. I shout to myself, stop burning. Bring your strength together. This will not last forever. But I've heard sounds louder than that. Why didn't they make me feel so flat? How could I have been so brave? Because my baby did not talk this way. With every beep, I build a door to where I'll enter and lay on a floor that's full of dust and machines aplenty. next to a plastic box that holds inside my baby.
Maria, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely amazing. And I think it really wraps up everything that we were talking about in terms of, going through that experience and how every little thing has an impact and just stays with you forever. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's important what we do with it after. So instead of becoming bitter, we can become better and use it to a bigger purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Nat, Em and I absolutely want to do and have been doing for years since our babies were born.
Congratulations.
Yeah. No, well, thank you so much. It's absolutely lovely to have you on and learn more about what you're doing. And anytime that you want to come back and share any more new research and things that are going on, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely. I'll come back. Thank you so much for having me. Carry on the good work.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on another episode of the NICU Live Network. Thanks for joining us today. To stay connected, please make sure you're following us on social media.
And if you found value in this episode, please share, like, or comment.
We'll see you on the next episode.